Hey, welcome to another edition of Radio Friends again, March 8th, 2024. I'm Steve Parker, and already we're just a couple of minutes in, and people are signing on, so they'll be coming on probably as we move around the show. And why don't you guys, let's see, why don't you just introduce yourself? There's Pete Salant. He joined me. Where are you coming to us from today, Pete?
Hey, I am here in beautiful sunny Virginia Beach, Virginia, where we have lived since 2016 and we will die here.
Ah,
But not
yes,
in,
and
Hopefully not soon.
but no, not anytime soon. And Bob, to answer your question, it was 1998.
and that question was,
And the question was, when did WWYZ move from Waterbury to the Columbus Avenue studios in Hartford?
all right,
Where,
and now,
where was your office when you were there? Well,
Was
mine was in the production studio.
Oh yeah, no, we had a lot of the entire first floor of that building.
Well, that's a whole different scene then. I'm
Oh
talking about the
yeah.
ATR building.
Oh yeah. Well, I now that was a diff. I was at ATR and YZ back in 86 and 87. I was consulting them, so I didn't have an office.
Well, in essence, I didn't either. So,
Okay.
and let's see, there's Ted Daliku. Ted, where are you coming to us from today?
From foggy Venice, Florida, west coast of Florida, where the humidity is like 150% this morning, and
Wow.
you can wring out the sidewalk and it would water the lawn.
And Ron Pell, you got new digs. Where are you coming to us from today?
I'm in Cheshire, Connecticut. No more Meriden. Meriden's in the rearview mirror. No offense to Meriden. Where it's sunny and in the 50s today, possibly 60. We're setting records. We set records last week for temperature. And I heard yesterday that the February was the warmest month in history.
Cool.
Yes, and there is no global warming,
No.
global warming. Yes, thank you, Bob Craig. Where are you coming to us from today? Are you still in Pennsylvania?
yes, I am still in the Philadelphia area. I haven't moved since we spoke last Friday. I just love it sitting right here looking into the screen.
And Tracy Carmen.
Live and in person from beautiful Long Meadow, Mass, where I've been for 63 years. God knows why.
Wow.
And the judge is back. Hi, Judge.
Good morning. I'm at my stately manor in Marlborough, Connecticut. And I also spent 1 week at WWYZ. I'll tell you that story sometime.
A whole week.
Well,
Whoa.
tell it today.
Oh, go ahead. You can tell it. We can pause and chat a little here.
Well, I was completely out of radio. I was working at Aetna as a computer programmer, and somehow I ran into Johnny Michaels. I don't know. I can't remember how we got in touch with each other. And he goes, well, wait, you want to get back into radio? You're thinking about it? Yeah, no, and I'm not really sure. He says, oh, we're looking for a morning man at WWYZ. And I'm thinking country and Western. He says, yeah, but he says, I remember your act from WAVZ. And he says, we're looking to do something in the mornings, thinking like a hee-haw type show, but on radio. And so I started thinking about this. Yeah. I says, well, what are we talking about as far as money? And I think he was going to give me $200 a week or something. It was a lot less than I was making it at. And I says, no, I'm not really interested. He says, but you've got a sales background. He says, you could go out and just sell, just to get a couple of clients a week and probably be double your salary.
Sell your show. I've heard that.
That's not, I'm thinking about this, but this is not a bad idea. And my ego gets the best of me.
Sure.
I decided, well, okay, I'm going to try this. So I gave my notice at Aetna, and I started at the WWYZ. And first week I'm there, I'm on in the mornings. I'm doing mornings about 3 days in, and Preston comes in and he tells me, he says, oh, good to have you here. You're going out, you're going to start selling. He says, but we're only going to give you a 7% commission. Said, why you only give me a 7% commission? He says, well, you're making a salary on doing your morning show, so you don't need the full 15% commission. How does that, what's the logic behind that? It doesn't make any sense at all. He says, well, that's the way it's going to be. I said, well, okay. So I went into Johnny's office. I said, I'm leaving. Goodbye. But I called my boss at Aetna, and I said, "Hey, listen, I think I made a mistake. I want to come back." And he says, "Oh, good." He says, "Because the secretary hadn't even filed your notice that you were leaving." He says, "Well, chalk it up to 1 week vacation. You come back to Aetna." I said, "Oh,
that's great." Oh,
Wow.
got John Landry's coming to us this morning. Good morning, John.
Good morning. I'm from sunny Middletown, Connecticut. It's like 42, 43 degrees outside right now. And like Ron Pell said, it looks like it's going to go up to 60. So let's hope.
It's a beautiful day. And there's Bob Marks. Some people call him Bart Mazzarella, but to me, he's my big brother, Bob Marks. Hi, Bob.
Hey, Steve. I'm still here in Vero Beach. I moved here in '87 and hooked on with Christian FM radio in 1991 doing mornings. I've been off the air from Big D since '83. And, I had a great career over at DRC from 75 and 83. That's 8 years. And, I'll tell you, it's in me. I'm always going to be your Big D brother, Steve.
Oh, thanks a lot, Bob. Back at you. Let's see. We got Jim Harrington. Hi, Jim, another brother.
Hi. I'm in beautiful Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, which is suburban Pittsburgh, a vacationing spot for many people. People travel from far and wide to spend their summers in beautiful downtown Pittsburgh because it speaks for itself.
That's where the is that where the Three Rivers come together?
At the confluence. At the confluence, yes.
It's a great spot. It's a
beautiful city.
Pittsburgh's a great city.
It really is. It surprised me when I came here. It surprises a lot of people.
Ron sent me out to Pittsburgh to do some sort of a cafe latte taste testing thing in the middle of the Three Rivers Stadium Festival with like 100,000 people trying to get them to drink this thing. Remember that, Ron?
Steve, I do remember it, and I've said this 100 times. I'll say it another 100. You were kind enough, and you were just the best guy because you would go anywhere, anytime, any place, and just give me a ticket, get me on a plane, and I'll go. And you did.
That's what you got to do in this business. I remember being with Al.
Especially at CRN.
Al Pellegrino would say, and I'd be selling at Al Pellegrino. So I got a problem down at the transmitter, and I go down there. And then
was that at the Point, Steve? Was that at the Three Rivers? The park area?
I was right by the bridge there. I was actually on the bridge getting people to sample this stuff. And I'm by myself handing this stuff out, trying to ask questions and fill out surveys. And oh my God, it was
Jim, what's that thing that goes up and down the mountain by the spring?
It's the incline.
The incline.
Yeah, the incline.
Yeah.
Right.
The
Jim, Monongahela.
One of my motorcycle friends, Jim, grew up in, I think it's Charlevoix, just outside of Pittsburgh.
Sure. It's like 25
every
minutes.
year, he has a Pittsburgh Day party. And he has the recipe for the Primanti Brothers sandwich up on the wall. He orders the French fries and the sausage.
Oh, my God.
March 24th. And he's got a disco ball in his garage that he lights up. And he plays he streams a Pittsburgh radio station that he used to listen to, and we all sit around and play Pittsburgh.
But I never when they gave me a Primanti Brothers sandwich for the first time when I got here, I thought the chef had fallen down with the tray, and like everything went into the bun. It had coleslaw, French fries, all the stuff everything from the plate was in the bun. And that was your sandwich.
Right. Put it on a hoagie roll and eat it, whatever fell in. And that's what
they love it.
Wait a minute. That means Bob Craig, I think you should have introduced this whole thing about the sandwich, right?
I don't think I would have gone that far. I mean, my stuff was a bit off the wall, but this is really
They got it from you. They got it from you. They got it from you, Bob. That's where they got it from.
It's an amazing experience. And the thing is, you bite into it, and it actually tastes good, which is a shocker.
It does. It does.
They did a segment on that place, on diners, drive-ins, and dives, or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And that's how I discovered the place. And I've never eaten there, of course. And I remember them saying it was kind of like the Soup Nazi. If you asked for the fries on the side, they would kick you out of the line.
Probably.
Well, if any of you guys are around here in Venice, Florida, on March 24th, he'd be inviting you to that same driveway party. We put up a tent and everything. There were last year there were like 40 people there, all his friends from Pittsburgh.
I gotta
We
come
actually
down
might
for
be
that.
there. We might be there during that time. Man, Angela and I are going down there for a few days. We might be close to that. How far are you from, how far are you from Melbourne?
Oh no, way far from Melbourne. Melbourne
Never
Other
is
mind.
side of the state.
Yeah.
Way over on the
You're on
other
the west
side of the
side.
state.
Melbourne's on the east
About
side.
2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours.
All right, we got well, there's Dave Overson popping on. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Sorry, I'm a little late. I had a guest. He just left with his dog, and I'm kind of somewhat under the weather today, so
Yeah,
I'm
you
just
are.
gonna be very quiet. And
Where are you, Dave?
where am I? I'm in
what-
Port St. Lucie, Florida.
Oh, Port
I'm
St.
in
Lucie.
I'm in my office today. I was gonna go out on the lanai, but it was too hot out there, so I decided to stick around and try out my new setup here.
And
We're
there's
talking
Ed
low
Mitchell.
80s, Dave. Come on. Low
What's
that?
80s. That's not low 80s. That's not bad.
That's
That's
not
paradise.
Yeah,
It is. Low 80s is nice.
yeah. So
There's
and
there's Ed Mitchell over there. Just saw Ed slide in a few minutes ago.
Yep. I did. Coming to you from Jeffersonville, Indiana, right across the river from Louisville.
And Greg Simonson looks like he's on the road.
Yeah, I'm a moving target this morning, but I'm in right now crossing the bridge from one side of the Connecticut River to the other. And but most of all, I'm glad I tuned in to think about Primanti's, and then I got to thinking about sandwiches in Philadelphia when Bob was talking. I know that there's a lot of good eats in those two towns.
Guy's
You
hungry
go
now.
to well, Geno's and Pat's.
How about
Chat's.
Ginsburg and Wong's?
Mhm.
And also, Bob, there's got to be a great place for pretzels. You can tell me next time I go down there.
Well, for up until a few years ago, there were people that used to hawk them right on the Vine Street Expressway, and I was thinking about how much gas would be embedded in these roadside pretzels that they would be selling.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You can get pretzels anywhere. Anyway.
Carbon coated.
Yeah, carbon coated pretzels. Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, I'll let you know. I'll meet you and buy a pretzel.
Thank you very much. Very kind.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Hey, Tracy, Tracy Carmen, are you in Florida or Massachusetts right now?
I'm here this week. I'm flying down to Florida next Friday night. How long are you down there for?
Just a few days. I got to check with Angela. I'm going. I think it's Easter weekend. I'm going down on Saturday afternoon and flying home Thursday morning.
Okay, so you'll be coming back as I'm getting down there because, like I said, the kids are out of school like 3:00 on Friday. Then we have a 7:15 flight that night, and we'll turn around. We'll be there for a week, maybe do Disney and a couple of other things, and turn around and head back. Try to hit up Lee Gordon and company down there for lunch, perhaps for some teriyaki tabby.
It sounds like a plan, Tracy.
I'll hunt you down, my friend. We'll get it done.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to just got a note from Ron Pell. He's going to have to take off, and I thought, Ron, you might, of course, the news of the day is that terrible fall by Joey Reynolds. But I thought, Ron, you might want to say something before you take off.
He's already gone.
Boy, I gave him such a great
Florida.
Said we'll be right back.
Can I get a word in about Florida?
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to be down. My wife and I are going to be down in Fort Myers on, what's the date? That we get there on the 22nd. We leave on the 27th. But Lee Gordon is going to come over from Boynton Beach on Monday, the 25th. We're going to meet for lunch. If any of you guys are going to be in the Fort Myers area at that time,
I'm
please-
60 miles away. I was in Fort Myers. I was in Fort Myers last night. I saw Bob Dylan in concert for the third time, and don't go. He's coming through.
Love to join you. I'm going to be flying back here on the 23rd, unfortunately.
25th, huh, Judge? I'll see if I can get down there on the Monday the 25th. That might work.
Yeah, Monday the 25th at 1 p.m. We're going to meet at my hotel, which is the Doubletree Hilton Bell Tower Road or something. I can send you an address.
And you're probably not going to be near Melbourne either, right?
I'm not sure where Melbourne is.
It's on the East Coast.
East and north.
Oh, well, I'll be with all of you.
Back to the Dylan concert. It was no good.
The arrangements now for a long time have always been way different than the original arrangements. He did a bunch of songs from the new album, which I do not have, and because of the way the sound is mixed, it was in like a field house, a basketball court thing that they put bleachers up and stuff, and the sound was really tough. He stays behind the piano the whole time, plays the piano, got up and walked out twice. Once was to leave at the end, and just bangs on the piano, and you just couldn't. He just blurts out phrases of the lyrics, and the band plays. So the music is good, but you really don't understand what he's saying most of the time. And
never did.
And it was apparent there was some drunk woman who was a younger woman with her boyfriend, husband, who talked the entire time because she had no idea who it was. And it was I mean, I saw Dylan in '65 with Joan Baez in Philadelphia at Independence Hall. I sat on the floor because we were late to get to the concert.
Oh my God.
I saw him again at UConn in '92, and he was great in '92. He did a stand-up set by himself, and it was terrific. And it was like, okay, I don't have to see this again.
Well, I'll tell you though, amazing when they did the stadium tour right over here in New Britain. It was Dylan, Willie Nelson, and John Mellencamp. And that was about 10 minutes from my house back a few years ago when they were doing the baseball stadium tour. But,
really? Well, I guess I'm sure the rest of the guys held up the bit because he just.
Oh, I know. He did 5.5 hours. He did 5.5 hours down at Toad's years ago, and they said it's like the longest set he ever did. And he was multiple sets because he was enjoying himself so much. He kept going downstairs and saying, "Can I do another one?" And but. I don't know if anybody ever understood anything Dylan was saying.
Well, what you mean? I don't understand.
Right. He's pretty
You got a lot of nerve.
I mean, the band walked off. There were two guys on each side of him when he walked off. He held onto the piano when he was standing there at the end and said, "Thank you very much." And two guys from the band walked alongside him, and one of them looked like he was holding his elbow to make sure he was going to get off for whatever reason.
And
I'll do a 180 from Bob Dylan. I don't know if you guys knew, but Steve Lawrence passed away.
Yeah, I did. I saw that yesterday. Yeah,
that's sad.
Oh, very sad.
Really good singer, and he had Alzheimer's for at least 5 or 6 years, I guess.
Yeah, I'd heard that his son is friends with Randy West, and Randy had commented on that online a couple of years ago.
And let's see, Dick Calt is jumping on. Hi, Dick. Good morning.
Good morning to you. I can't stay very long, but I wanted to pop in. Any more news on the situation with our friend?
With Joey?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is anybody
what happened?
From what Randy says, he's healing. He's in the hospital. He'll be getting out in a couple of days.
Does anybody know what actually happened to him?
Yeah. He fell out of bed in the middle of the night.
Oh my God.
Smack dab on the back of his head on the stove.
And then you had mentioned before, Steve, that he had staples put in when he was on with us. I wonder if he's having a balance problem or something is not right there.
Yeah, it could be.
So what is it? I gather he lives alone.
Yeah. Yes, he does. He has a girlfriend, but he lives alone.
That's very, very tough. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, he was on with us. He said he had just moved to a new place, and he was moving in the last time he was on with us. So it's probably exacerbated by being an unfamiliar area.
Is he down in Florida?
Sure.
Yeah.
But this was in Manhattan. This was New York, his New York apartment, right?
Yeah, I read it was like New York. Yeah.
That link that I sent you yesterday, Steve, was just circulated around. That was on Media Confidential. I don't know if any of you were able to open the interview that he did with Dan Ingram.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was on there too. So there are 12 good minutes that are on with Ingram. When Joy was doing the all-night show, I guess on Sunday night, was it on WOR?
Yeah, he did it every night. It was a 5 nights a week show.
Oh, yeah.
On
5
OR.
nights.
Yeah. Hey, Steve Clark Smith is also here.
Where did he go?
Hey, Clark.
Oh, there, Clark. Hi, Clark.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Clark.
It's good to see you.
Was that a picture of your son I saw up on Facebook?
Yeah, I guess so.
Dapper looking boy. Yep.
Well, thank you. He looks like his mother.
So I got to tell you, there's it was so strange because when we did have Joey on with us a few weeks ago, he had mentioned that fall. Yeah, and then he cut open the back of his head, Dick, with staples in there. But oh man, God, send prayers that way, man. That's just brutal.
Well, as you get older, falling is the biggest problem, right?
It's the worst. Yeah.
Do it all the time.
Yeah.
Yep. My doctor says, "Have you fallen more than 2 or 3 times in this past year?" I said, "Do that each day." What are you trying to ask me? It's like, it's usually with me, it's usually not getting, it's, clumsy feet going upstairs or something. I a couple of times, even at CRN, those long linoleum stairs that were all the way up to the top of the place. And I guess
at least we had a railing.
Oh yes.
maybe.
I think
maybe.
I know one time I did those stairs very much like the stairs that they used to do on Barefoot in the Park, where it would be going forever, like you go up the stairs and maybe there were 30 stairs, but by the time you got done, there were 45. And when I got to the top, whoever was sitting there looked at me and said, "Yep, now it's you and Barry Berman." It's like if people could hear you going up the stairs, you couldn't help but put a few extra stairs in there like you were going up even higher.
I always used the back staircase because it was a little bit more forgiving. And if you fell, the whole world didn't see you in the front as you went sliding down the stairs. If anybody ever recalls that bank building at CRN, anybody was there.
And that's that's where we used to have Cult in the Vault. So yeah, great meetings in there. Yeah. And then he'd close the door and refuse to give out the combination until you got an order. But that was another show. They're gonna let you out. But
Greg, do you have memories? Those same memories, Greg? Well, I don't know if he's there.
Greg, you there?
He was in his car.
Unmute, Greg.
It looks like it's stationary.
Yes, oh, yeah. The answer is yes. That was a beautiful grand old building, and the vault added a touch of whimsy.
To explain what we're talking about, the conference room at CRN was the actual old bank vault,
right.
Bank building. And that's where we could fit about 12 people in that room, and we'd have our meetings in there.
So much wonderful work got done in that building. Those could actually have closed.
Sort of like the last national bank. Huh?
Yeah, well, Greg is driving. Greg, you're dropping in and out a bit. The only thing I would say is that was 42 years of my life that I felt I worked with a group of people that were second to none, and we did some amazing things all over the world. And the bank, we kept the vault door. We didn't use it actively, but when you went in the vault, you saw it. And originally, the idea was to use the door. And if we brought a client in, we'd close the door and we'd say, "Okay, we'll let you know when we're opening the door. It comes after you give us the order," just for fun. But we figured it might be too much trouble. But we also had a vault downstairs as well, where we kept all of our tapes, all of our recordings and everything. The building is still there, though. It's still there. It was national. It's on the
shared space now,
the list of national historic places.
They use it as a shared space type of place now.
It is.
People rent rooms in it to use as offices.
What were you going to say, Greg?
I was asking, is anybody in that space now?
Yeah. It's a rented space. It's been that way since we sold it. I sold. We sold that building in 2 weeks from the time I posted it for the asking price. Wow. And it was mainly because we had a cell tower on the roof. And everybody wanted that roof because the cell tower was just pure cash. And it did. It picked up a lot of our expenses.
Do they still have that bank? Do they still have that bank where the last national bank was, 750 Main Street, where the restaurant used to be?
Long gone.
Yeah.
But is the bank still there? They had the vault there too. If I remember,
that was downstairs in the basement, basically. Yeah. I think that's gone. I don't think that's been there for a long time.
That was Connecticut National Bank. I think they're out of.
Yep.
The one thing I remember about that,
a lot of meetings down in that place.
Never ate at that restaurant, but I just remember their phone number was 203 a holdup.
Yeah, that's right. Good memory,
That's
Tracy.
good.
Yeah.
Ted, you
So
wanted to mention something about the bank?
Ron, you just moved from Meriden to Cheshire. 45 years ago, I built a house in Cheshire. I wonder if you're anywhere. Probably not. It was on Sorghum Mill Drive
I know exactly where that is. I know
off of
a
Higgins
good friend of
Road.
mine. A good friend of mine built those houses. A guy named Jay Brodash. His father, he was builders.
Yes, Jay is the guy I bought it from. Yep.
Jay recently retired. He built, I would say he probably built over 1,000 houses, probably more in his lifetime. Most of them in Cheshire, but he was all over the shoreline up in Simsbury. He's in Florida right now for a month. Jay and I are good friends and great guy, but I know exactly where that is. But I'm about 3 miles from there.
We lived right across the street from where the family shooting
Yes, very sad.
I mean, literally right across the street.
So that's like Memorial Park now. They never built another house there. They tore it down. They raised the house and they put it in like memorial gardens and stuff. They just wouldn't build another house there.
Jeez.
Everybody knows about that, I'm sure. These two guys, basically
home invasion,
abducted a woman and her kids and killed them all. And the guy was a doctor.
Dr. Pettit.
Dr. Pettit. And he's rebuilt his life. He's remarried. He's actually a state assemblyman now, or a state legislator. Lives in Plainville. But boy, oh boy, to bring that back to radio, Jerry Christopher, bless his soul, he did a phenomenal job on covering that, on the memorials, and everybody knows Jerry. And Jerry became very, very good friends with Dr. Pettit. But he really took that whole thing on. That was a terrible. That was probably the worst thing in Cheshire's history.
Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah. Dick Holt is an old Pete. Dick had bought and sold about 3 houses in Cheshire and owned the subway. If you go back in the day, there was a subway in Cheshire. Dick owned that.
We had the first subway. We had the first subway in Cheshire. It was given to me by Fred DeLuca directly. I paid $5,000 in total for just a move in. It was ready to go. It was a favor because we were handling all of their work, and it was right on Route 10, just as you came into Cheshire. And I had 4 houses in Cheshire. I had one right across the street from, my memory is killing me. The Cheshire Club, where the street branches off slightly to the left. 31. I can't remember. But I built 2 houses and owned another one, and I loved it in Cheshire. In fact, my oldest daughter graduated from Cheshire High School. She went to Cheshire Academy for a year and then graduated from Cheshire High School. And then I moved in 81, I think it was. I lived there from about 76 to 81.
Dick, you mentioned Subway and PLR, and you were very instrumental in getting that place started with Subway, weren't you?
Well, when I first met Fred and Peter, they had like 3 locations. They had just opened up. They had 2 in Bridgeport and 1, I think, in Milford, and they were really doing a lot of experimentation. And we had just signed on. I mean, literally, they were among the very first advertisers that I ever met with, and we just hit it off. And they used to come and hang out. Fred in particular would come up and hang out at the office a lot, and we would talk about ideas. In fact, one of the best promotions we ever did was the Great Subway Rally, and that was about 1974, 75, and by then there were about maybe 35 locations in Connecticut, and they hadn't really branched out very far from Connecticut. So we ran a promotion where you had to pick up the ticket from PLR at any one of our appearances, and then you had to have it initialed at every one of the 35 subways in Connecticut. And if you turned in the ticket, you had free subways for a year.
Wow.
Oh, it worked out very well. They loved it. But now what are they up to? Like 20,000 locations, I think, around the world.
One in every Dunkin' Donuts. There's one in every street corner.
Yeah,
I think
they
just sold off the chain,
any
didn't they?
Largest food franchise in the world, as a matter of fact. Subway.
When I lived in Stratford, Fred's son was running the Subway on Boston Avenue. in Bridgeport. We used to go in there at as a college student. We used to go in there at 10:30 at night. We'd walk out with a 12-pound sandwich. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Tracy, where'd you live in Stratford?
I lived on Pixley Place near the hospital.
I lived at on Main Street, way out going towards towards Wilbur Cross, the park.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I was there for my last year of college at Bridgeport, and interesting year. Not a safe neighborhood, but again, that was 81, 82.
Oh.
I used to
John
commute
Fuller,
from...
who's the current owner of DRC, has a radio station down in Ledyard, and he owns the building, and downstairs tenant is a Subway, so it comes around full.
They're everywhere.
I have a friend of mine, Brian Ambrose, who's done a lot of photography with the radio business. Actually, did a lot of shot a lot of pictures at the old DRC at 750. But he was actually he's become very well known for his work. And he said he was actually going with a family and traveling with them from here to Hawaii because they wanted to hire him. There had been a wedding, and he was the wedding photographer, and they wanted to do some more photos in Hawaii, and they landed in San Francisco, and one of the guys going, "I can't believe there's not a Subway around here." It's because it was one of the guy's sons. I think it may have been one of the DeLuca's sons. That's who the wedding was. And Brian didn't know it until that moment in time where he's like, "I can't believe there's not a Subway around here." But
I will say this. When I first met Fred, he said to me, he looked me right in the eye and he said, "My goal is to have the largest franchise operation in the world. That's my goal." And that was back when they had, only a few, and who knew? But boy, they really did. And then one last thing, and I'll shut up. When I was in Detroit in my earlier career, I was in Ann Arbor, and Tom Monahan, a fellow you may remember because he had a pizza business called Domino's. Yeah. Well, he started in Ypsilanti, Michigan, which is adjacent to Ann Arbor. Right. And I was in a fraternity at Eastern Michigan University, and we used to deliver pies for this guy at this place called Dominic's, which was right down the block. And we would go in and deliver the pies, and in exchange for it, because he couldn't afford to pay us, he gave us pies. And a lot of times the pies were that we were delivering were to the dorms, and the kids were screwing us by saying, "Oh, we didn't order the pie. We didn't order the pie. And but I'll give you $1 because you don't want to throw it away." They used to play that game.
Hey,
but
Dick,
he used to sit on the top. Huh?
You just reached out to Jim Kerr because I think he celebrated his 50th year doing mornings in New York, maybe, or something like that. And your shout out to him was, it all started in Ypsilanti.
It did. Well, Jim and I worked. He was 15, and he worked at the same radio station I did, a 100-watt Christian country radio station. And that was where he got his start. I've known Jim since 1965. And we talk all the time. I haven't seen him probably for about a year, but we have that one thing. But just to finish up, so the guy sitting on the counter at this place, he was just waiting for the phone to ring to make a pie. It was Tom Monahan, and that was his only place. What he did is he bought the place from the Dominic family, and so he changed the name to Domino. He kept the name at Dominic's. And they sued him to change the name because they no longer owned the place, so they didn't have control of the product. And that's how Domino's came to be. It was kind of an offshoot of Dominic's, and that was his very first location, and he made the pies. And then the rest is history.
We just had a couple of people join us. Lee Gordon, we saw you. We see your backdrop, but are you still down in Florida, or that's where you live now, right?
That's correct. I'm here. I'm here forever now. Not to here till they find me and haul me out and.
And what town are you in down there?
Boynton Beach.
Nice town.
Boynton Beach.
Yes,
just around the corner from a betting barn.
I was about to say we got a betting barn. I know that one.
It's literally less than a mile from my house.
Yeah, that was like when I was doing some PR for Papa's Dodge. And Dominic Papa said, "Geez, my wife, my mom lives down that way, and can we get her a bed?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Can you get us a deal?" I said, "I might be able to help." And he goes, "Okay, she's on her way in there now." I'm like, Oh, great. That's usually when people think to call me. So, I call the owner and he calls the manager and, and I think we were able to help her out. But it was like, that's where, friends come out of nowhere. Oh, there's the barn. But Lee,
all my beds in this house are from Betting Barn, and they were all made in Hartford because they're all Gold Bonds. And when I first got here, that's like one of the first places I went because I didn't want to sleep on the floor. So I went to the Betting Barn.
Bob Boychik.
Yeah.
4 generations. Yep. And four generations, and he will never sell online. And I actually went in there to see the place, and because he really Betting Barn ended up sponsoring the Saturday morning show that I do because Boychik listened, and he said, he says, "Oh, geez, I remember you listening to your dad's letter to Kennedy, and I was just sitting there in tears, and and he was so supportive of the show." But I went there for a tour, and I'm telling you, man, there's not too many places that actually will customize a mattress. I mean, you go into Betting Barn and you just say, I need a mattress, 12 feet by 4 feet, whatever. And within less than a week, they do that. You walk through the factory, there's cotton all over the place. They're 2-sided mattresses. And I was really floored. 4 generations. And their stuff is all high end. It's in, oh my gosh, they have Brown University, Four Seasons hotels. So
you know where he really got successful, Steve? Hotels. Bob Boychik and Gold Bond Mattress was probably the leading supplier of hotel mattresses in the world.
Wow.
He that built his business.
Yep. Because
when I went in there to buy my mattress, they had a radio playing, and it was Dick Robinson's radio station.
Yeah, and it's funny because
Steve, they're the ones.
We have another former son of Meriden here, having joined us, Chuck Martin.
Hey, Chuck, how are you?
Hi, guys. How you doing?
You'd think with all the radio stations, the 400 radio stations you worked at, you'd be able to do it in your sleep.
Well, I know. Well, that's what happens with age, though,
Oh, no, don't tell me.
He's famous. He's actually famous on the radio for his muted mic.
The Marceau edition.
Yeah, Chuck Martin, one of the best breaks you'll never hear.
Hey, Chuck,
Steve,
how was that
Tommy
James? How was that Tommy James
Oh,
concert?
I have to tell you, it was absolutely spectacular. The house, it was a full house. Fantasy Springs had, it was standing room only. It was a large audience. He was fantastic. He did every single song. He was so personable. And, just to see him, you could tell, like the rest of us, all the faces I see here were all aged. You could tell that, he was up there, but he never missed a beat. He sounded as good today as he did yesterday. And when he did Crystal Blue Persuasion, the house fell down.
Here's the song that he was supposed to give to Alive and Kicking, right?
Well, here's the gold record.
Hang on.
There's Ron.
Yeah. And on the gold record, it says, Tighter, Tighter, Alive and Kicking, written by Tommy James and Bob King.
Yeah.
That's proof. I didn't know if I had this when I moved. I just moved recently and I found it.
He made mention of that song Alive and Kicking when he was recording in New York and in the studio. And he went to see this group, and they were just beginning out of Brooklyn, Alive and Kicking.
That's the story.
And he heard him, and he said, I got a song for you. And he almost gave him Crystal Blue Persuasion, but he said, I think I'm going to keep this one for myself. And he gave him
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Chuck, did he have any young? Were there any young fans there? Were any younger people in the audience?
Yeah, there were, but not as many old farts like you people.
Hey,
of the
young people like people in their 60s?
Well, yeah, there were, but I would say that probably maybe 10% was under 50. 90% was, folks over 50, 60, 70, 80, there were a good portion of older people there.
I just remember Crimson and Clover, and I was probably 12 years old and going down. I think I bought my first pair of bell bottoms there, and at the Doll Factory was the name of the place. And And that's when Miss Clark, my junior high school principal, sent me home and said, Mr. Parker, you will not be wearing bell bottoms to this school. So, but I remember Crimson and Clover. That was like the song going from, crossing through that time in your life of you're starting to get hair all over the place, but, in your pipes. But it was great.
Steve, on that Crimson and Clover, you know how it gets that vibrato at the end. Crimson. Yeah. Well, it was a lot. They had some kind of mechanics that did that, electronics that did that, and because it comes at the end of the song.
Yep.
And I got to tell you, the house went nuts on that one too. I mean, it really was a great show. It really was one of the better ones. Yeah.
When you were talking about older audiences before. It brought to mind, and you never realize about the aging of an audience, but this all came home to me around, I think it was the year maybe 2000, somewhere in that vicinity. And I was working at WPEN here in Philly, and I was doing middays for a while. And we're the AM station to WMGK, which was soft rock, which I had programmed during the 1980s. And it was basically a young 25 to 54 solid audience at WMGK. WPEN was an adult standard station. So it was, Tony Bennett, Sinatra, Steve Lawrence, blah, blah, blah. And I walked into the lobby going to work one morning. There was a bunch of people. There must have been about a dozen, 15 people waiting to pick something up at the station. And they were all probably in their 60-year-old range. And when I walked in, I looked at them and I said to myself, we weren't giving away any tickets on PEN. I couldn't understand why all these older people were in the lobby. And they said they were there to pick up tickets for WMGK, which was at that point a classic rock station. So you don't even think of the fact that classic rock is such an upper demo format right now. The advantage that they have is, fortunately for them, the people who do classic rock, is that a lot of younger people have glommed on to rock from the 60s and 70s. So it just keeps evolving. A lot of them are really discouraged with a lot of pop music today. But the aging factor on that it just really all brought it home. And I just never realized, you never realize until you see it, how older audiences have evolved and what they're listening to. So you can imagine what our demo was at PEN. It was primarily 65 to death.
You have a Walker giveaway, right? It's just
Preparation H.
Put a little bumper sticker on the Walker, and that's
the whole package.
By the way, I just want to let you know that there is a movie that has just been released in the past 3 or 4 days, and it's called Runaway Radio. I was talking on the phone with a very good friend of mine. I think you remember him, Ron, and Greg, I can't believe this. Anyway, Doug Harris.
Oh yeah, Doug, of course.
Oh yeah.
So now Doug was for many years the promotion director of K101 in Houston back in the early 70s, and we used to compare notes. But he called to tell me that they have just released film. It's on Apple TV Plus, and you can rent it for $4.99 or buy it for $9.99, whatever. It's an hour and a half long, and it's the history of the emergence of album-oriented rock, starting in Houston and Dallas. And they talk about K101. They talk about Rock 97. They have interviews with everybody. Then they start talking about New York and Cleveland, MMS, MMR, BCN. They didn't get into Connecticut yet. They didn't. Anyway, it was I was mesmerized because that movie was my life, in the sense that everything they talked about was everything we were doing when we launched WPLR. And if you're interested, I found it very entertaining and interesting. But man, you could really connect with everything they were saying.
Well, Dick, when I was in Toledo and I went to work, the second station I worked for, first it was WSPD and then Seaway, WCWA.
Yep.
And they had an FM station that was a beautiful music thing, machine run, the Bonneville format and stuff.
Yep.
And I was doing AM mornings, and the general manager got pitched by two guys that were together, and one of them, I think, called himself Sebastian something or other. And that was the beginning. He wanted to take over the FM because that was a 50,000 watt station, FM, that was playing Bonneville format.
Yeah, they were doing nothing with it.
And we changed it to WIOT. And that was the beginning of album-oriented rock there. And that was in, I think, 72.
Yeah,
so
I remember the
interesting.
calls. Well, that was just it. Like, for example, WNHC FM, which was what WPLR was basically a write-off. They were doing nothing. One of the very first things we did is we sold FM converters for the car.
Oh, yeah.
For 1995. And we sold hundreds of them because we needed to have a way for people to get the signal back in 1971.
In Toledo, they were pitching it north towards Ann Arbor and towards Ypsilanti, where the college were.
Yeah.
And Toledo, of course, University of Toledo had a big group. So I wound up, getting circulating in that group, as well as just doing the regular standard stuff, the top 40 kind of deal that I was doing on AM in the morning. But
yeah, I remember SPD, absolutely, and TOD as well. And
yeah, TOD as well. But
yeah, and we used to go to Toledo to drink because Ohio was 18, Michigan was 21.
Yeah, but you could buy beer on Sundays in Michigan. We used to drive from Toledo up to Michigan to buy a case of beer.
Yeah, you could, because Michigan was Michigan was a closed state on Sunday. We used to go down to the town hall in Toledo, where all the kids. And there was another one too. It was I liked Toledo. It was a great town, but I spent most of my time in Ann Arbor, and I was on the air in Detroit for a while. But still, yes, indeed, Detroit. You can take the boy out of Detroit, but you can't take the Detroit out of the boy. That's all I can tell you.
Well, Dick, I just pulled up that Runaway Radio. And it says a legendary Texas rock radio station broke new records, attracting top music artists, all the while whipping its listeners into a frenzy. Runaway Radio focuses on Houston's 101 KLOL from its humble beginnings in 1970 to how it evolved into one of the top album-oriented rock stations in the country. It was seemingly unstoppable until the government stepped in. Lyle Lovett, ZZ Top's Dusty Hill, Melissa Etheridge, and Sammy Hagar, along with top DJs, reflect on the station and its screwball DJs. So yeah,
they had them. They had them, and Doug Harris plays a big role in the film and talks about all the promotion and everything. But they had a DJ there named Crash, and Crash was the equivalent of our Stone Man.
Hey,
huh? Oh, that's great.
What's driving, so he's in a bad area.
Get him his medication.
It sounds like my first audition tape.
I missed it.
It sounds like Tommy
the
James.
Title of the movie. I was only asking what the title of the movie was because I want to look it up.
Well, the movie is Runaway Radio.
Thank you.
And it's you will look at it and say, wow, I was in the middle of a lot of this stuff. Even if you weren't, you got a real understanding of the evolution of that side of it at that time. And I just God was good to me because he just dropped me right in there, right at the moment that Bob Purpey said, what do you want to do? And that's what we did. So.
Hey, I want Ed Mitchell, I'm sorry, to correct me if I'm wrong, but when I joined Big D FM in 75, weren't we AOR in our format?
Say that again now, did we?
I don't know if we had gone AOR yet. Maybe, I'm not sure. I think they may have been playing some album rock. I don't know if it was because don't forget they went to D103. And I'm not sure what year we did D103. Ed Bruder would know.
It was 77 or 78, Steve.
Okay.
It was a little later. I
remember distinctly playing lots and lots of great album cuts back in those days.
We played album cuts for sure. There was, I don't remember how many we were supposed to play in a given hour, but I remember all the albums were stacked on the wall behind us.
That's right.
And we would pick one or two tracks an hour, but basically we still played the pop hits and slipped in a few tracks like that.
I left in '76, so I have no idea what happened after that.
I think Barry Grant was doing the only off-label stuff overnight between midnight and 6. And
yeah, well, when we brought Barry over to PLR, what we did is our objective at that time was that we had gone so far right that we wanted to just get so far left that we wanted to get a little bit of a bump toward the middle. Of course, our years with Barry Grant shall go on.
Yeah, you told that story.
Heralded.
The only personality I ever knew that I actually almost came to blows with in the studio, but that's another story. But in any case, what you'll see in the movie, and you can relate to, everyone can, they had an unlimited library of albums. We did too. And what we did is we put a piece of paper on the front, and you had to write the name, you had to write the day and the time you played it. And you couldn't play it more often. But what they talked about that resonated so much with me was they would throw cuts together that made no sense, except maybe the segue was on the key of C minor, or maybe the subject was cats with green eyes, or maybe the artists both came from Honolulu. It didn't. There was a thread that you had to pick up on because there was no logic to the segue, and they were talking about how they used to do that, and our listeners went crazy too. We would get letters saying 12:39 on Tuesday. Great segue. Why? They thought it was a great segue, but they couldn't figure out the thread, but they tuned in.
They matched the keys of the song, the ending and the beginning. And actually, there was a program for the computer at KNX FM in Los Angeles that did the whole mellow sound format that way.
Yeah.
As opposed to, one song really fitting with the next.
Well, now today you can run a radio station and just have a human open the door and close the door, and it's just not what we would like.
And we have I remember DRC when they were doing, and I'm not sure the year, but when they would do the star sweeps, when they would 10 minutes of the hour all the way to 10 minutes after the hour, and focus on a certain artist, but also go deeper cuts. And it's crazy still, I mean, when you hear oldie stations, they only play from rumors, you can go your own way. If you had they sold millions of copies of that album, people would love to hear more tracks, but they don't. Hey, listen, only because I know I'm going to be winding up here soon, I just got this most incredible gift in the mail. And this came to me from Denny Tedesco.
Wow.
Dad, Tommy Tedesco was part of the Wrecking Crew.
Yeah, Tommy Tedesco, yeah.
I interviewed Denny recently, and he said, Steve, thanks for keeping the music alive, Denny T. But I will tell you, this is a coffee table book. It weighs a freaking ton. But last night, speaking of the Wrecking Crew, or as I was, my gal and I, Angela and I, went to see Cher at the Bushnell. Not that Cher, but the play Cher. But the funny thing was, Cher made dinner for my sister and I backstage at the Bushnell when it was Sonny and Cher. So to be back at the Bushnell and actually be there watching Cher. And also she talks about when she was with the Wall of Sound, and when they had a guy playing Phil Spector and all this stuff, and they were doing talking about the sessions back then. And when she performed recently with Darlene Love for Christmas, she said, I used to perform with Darlene when I was a teenager with those bands back then. So it was really kind of cool to hear that. But getting that.
Did anybody see the David Geffen documentary on Netflix? The David Geffen documentary. Yes. If you haven't seen it, it's phenomenal.
But it's great because he dated her.
It is.
And part of that, he was with Cher for a couple of years, David Geffen, and then she dumped him for Greg Allman.
Oh yeah,
and it's a great story.
Steve, describe that book.
It was a great video.
What's in that book, Steve?
The book has literally everything in it. But the neat thing about it is when you go into the book, you get things like the session notes. You got scribble from some of it. It's just phenomenal. I'd recommend anybody get it. I mean, look at even these close-up shots. I'll try to hold it up. Even these close-up shots are like Brian Wilson, and when you look at the stories behind all this stuff and millions of pictures, and it really, really is something. Like here's a girl holding a transistor radio, talking about those years, but it is. And on the front of it, look at just the cool looking cats that were in the Wrecking Crew. You know,
yeah, it's funny. Carol Kay posts a lot of stories online and a lot of her session logs.
Phenomenal.
And she's got a lot of books out. I sent off and paid a few bucks to get an autographed photo from her. But she talks about all those days and the sessions they were doing. I'd love to get my hands on some of the logs that she did and see a few things. I'm curious whether she played on by date, but it's out there on Facebook.
Is that book called Sound Symposium? Is that the title?
This is Sound Explosion inside LA Studio Factory with the Wrecking Crew, and I'm just trying to see here. It was oh gosh, I can't read the name of the guy. Yeah, I think it's Ken Sharp that put the book together. Ken Sharp. All right.
And Ron, the David Geffen Netflix, what is that called? Do you recall?
Oh, it's the documentary of David Geffen, isn't it?
It says a name of it, but if you go on Netflix and just search David Geffen, you'll find it. It's about 2 hours, hour and a half. It's just phenomenal when you see
about a con man.
Outstanding.
Yeah,
he was like the ultimate con man. Oh my God, he was.
Probably the greatest rock and roll band manager, and he goes back with Irving Azoff, and he became a billionaire. Then he went into movies and television, and but we mentioned Cher. That's part of the thing is he loved Cher. He still loves her, but
yeah, it's inventing David Geffen is what that's the name of things.
Yeah, David Geffen was very openly gay, and he loved Cher.
Well, that's not true. He wasn't open in the beginning. The first several years, he was in the closet. He would not come out. And grew up in Brooklyn, tough upbringing. His mother ran the family. His father kind of was not much of anything. And but he always knew he wanted to be successful and be in music. But he didn't come out until probably in his late 20s, 30s.
Yeah, Janis Joplin was the first one that he signed, wasn't she?
No, he signed. Oh my God, was it "Come Together"? Hey, now everybody come together, gonna love somebody now. What was
Youngbloods.
The Youngbloods, yeah, right. Jesse Colin Young, yeah. I think that was his first group.
Oh, okay.
One of his first groups. He had a couple of and then he built it. The Eagle. It's amazing who he managed.
Yeah. Didn't he end up like getting in a court battle with Don Henley or something on something?
That was later on, yeah. But don't forget, this guy not only he managed the bands, he owned the record label, and he did. I mean, he did everything, And they all, believe it or not, they all have great respect for him because he was for them. He loved the musicians and he loved the business.
Oh yeah, and
it's worth watching. It's really good.
He was smart enough to sign those guys when the Whiskey A Go Go guys that were like
That's it. He owned the club. That's right. He started the Whiskey A Go Go.
And
yeah.
Yep, and the Eagles and Linda Ronstadt, and he saw that, and what's really funny is, Ron, I'm sure the whole thing at the end is hysterical. Here's a guy they don't even know if he ever went to college, never mind if he finished college, and now he's put like millions of dollars into the Yale School of Drama, so now it's the David Geffen Yale School of Drama.
Yeah, that and the hospitals and everything else he's done. By the way, as an aside, everybody knows who Paul Giamatti is. Pepe's Pizza just renamed their famous white glam pie as the Paul Giamatti pie. So if anybody's in New Haven and you want to have pizza at Pepe's, ask for the Paul Giamatti pie because Paul Giamatti was talking about it on Jimmy Kimmel one night, and I guess the Pepe's people heard about it and said, "We got to name that pizza after Paul Giamatti."
We have Pepe's down here. You don't even have to be in New Haven. We have it. There's one in the next town south.
Is that right? Go in and ask for the Paul Giamatti pie, Lee.
All right, guys, I'm gonna have to get out of here because unfortunately there's been a passing, and Angela and I have to go to a memorial down in Norwalk. It's a noon memorial, so we're going to be cutting it pretty close. And then unbelievable again how things happen. We just got another call, and one of Angela lost her mom in October, and one of her dearest friends who's been full of life, jogging every day, probably 90 something herself, but always active. She had a stroke last night. So we're going to be stopping at the somewhere on the way back at one of the hospitals on the way back. But so I'm sorry I have to jump out. But let's do it again next Friday. This is that will be the 18th. of March.
15th.
No, Steve.
It'll be, I don't know why. At least I know who you guys are. I never know what day of the week it is. Yes, we'll get together again on the 15th of March. And for Radio Friends again, I want to thank all of my friends, and we'll catch you next week on Radio Friends again.
Your friend has got a lot to share.